I love this journey that I've been taking the last couple of months, if not years, on this channel, specific to my exploration of the European rock and metal market. I've said for a long while, for those of you who are familiar with this channel's activity and the content that I've produced, I've wanted to make music coverage much more of a mainstay and dominant presence here on the channel. I've covered many different types of artistic mediums of expression, all of which are very unique in their own way. Art is individually stylized. But as good as whatever art forms are, and as with the wide range of projects that I've complemented, in regard to those different types of mediums, music for me has always had a deeper relationship and a more significant presence and role in my life, and I've wanted to bring it fittingly into a grander focus here. And I've done so through various artists, whether they be more localized to the country of the United States. I've covered plenty of groups, and I've got more well on the way. I've got many favorites I haven't looked at yet and checked out some of their newer stuff. But I've wanted to explore a round of new artists and go artist shopping to see whatever talent is out there, not just in America, but also worldwide. And I've taken specific focus on the entertainment market within Europe in regards to rock and metal music scenes. I've been very impressed by the library of work that I found in that realm of the world. It's a lot like what people say about, let's say by comparison, South Korea. In terms of mainstream presentation, there's a lot of fans of, I would say, more traditional Hollywood fare pop music that have really gravitated towards K-pop. And I even say, admittedly, I'm somebody that's liked a couple spatterings of selections from that realm of the world of entertainment. See, I venture out into different spaces that perhaps even more unique for me. I'm not the biggest fan of pop music. There's sort of that devotion that you see played out more into the mainstream. That's the level of respect that I have as a compliment. Again, not to throw shade at K-pop, because there are some good artists there, but that is more along the pop lines. Metal's more my jam. I've been a big metalhead for many years. And so the artistry within the European realm of the world, that same devotion that many people express in regards to other types of entertainment ventures, for example, like I said, of K-pop, that's the level of respect that I have for many European artists. Of course, I followed the space of the music world for many years, and I've got plenty of favorites that have been long-lasting in my tenure of adventuring into Europe, though I've never visited physically. I've visited enough, exploring their entertainment entries from the confines of my basement. But I really wanted to go around with new artists and find, again, talent that perhaps satisfies that craving that I've had for a long time in regards to metal music to appreciate and become a fan of. I've also, in part, wanted to explore groups that maybe are not as well established or known in American circles. I have spoken before as well. I keep a very small social circle personally, perhaps by comparison much smaller than others do. And I tend to judge the familiarity of artists in the American realm on that grouping. Not many people in my life know 90% of the groups that I listen to from Europe. Or maybe I'd say actually 95. But I've wanted to be able to use this channel in part to amplify new talents. And perhaps for people that are in the same space as me, wanting to explore around and go artist shopping, send you the way of talented artists that deserve your attention. I would say on a first impression, and it's a very early one, but Melissa Boni, she fits. And Mortimia was integral to this. Some of you might know that name. I've covered about 9 of his works on this channel. For those of you who don't know the name, Norwegian one-man metal artist, along with symphonic and Gothic metal stylings. He's also very well known in the Sirenia attribution. I haven't yet to look at them, and I will. They're coming at some point, but I understand they're a very popular European group as well. But Mortimia has been a very enjoyable talent. He, again, like I said, is very involved in the symphonic Gothic metal space, and being a symphonic metal fan, that of course appeals to me. But I've loved his model of music in the collaborations that he's done through the Pandemic Pandemonium sessions and his newly unveiled album, The COVID Aftermath Sessions, where he plays more into the instrumental side. Sometimes he forms, the background vocals, usually with a very signature growl and scream. But he always has a female complement from a very, prominent, I would say, especially in Europe, metal or rock band. And he's had plenty of big names. Zora Koch of Blackbriar, Linda Tony Gran from Fall of a Cipher, Erica Olsen from Metalite, and also Melissa Boni from Ad Infinitum. And I was captivated by that collaboration he did with her, Devastation Bound, to the point that I would say out of the 9 I've listened to, the 8 of the collaborations, I've covered 9 in total, but out of the 8 collaborations, for overlapping both albums, Melissa Boni is my favorite. Her vocal command And the overall styling of a tune, in fact, plays a lot into why I've loved that track so much, and it is such a repeat listen for me, aside from many of the others. Everyone I've covered is very unique in its vision, but Devastation Bound is my favorite. So much so that in my idea of what I wanted to use Mortimia for, which was in part to explore new talents, I've decided to embark on exploring unfamiliar artists. Let's say in advance, I did this with Linda Toni Grant first, but it wasn't as much of a mainstay in regards to exploring that talent at the time. But I've wanted to make it more of a focus here with those artists, to be fair, right? And explore talent beyond what they did with Mortimia, because I think they're quite capable artists from what was a limited focus of their abilities. Melissa Boney really captivated me, so much so that I'm starting with Ad Infinitum, especially in regards to exploring talent centric to Mortimia's introductions. And Ad Infinitum, as I understand, is very popular. I know Melissa Boney also has a lot of notoriety from some of the other collaborations. I understand that she has part of involvement with Feuerschwangs. I have yet to look at them. When I covered D'Artagnan, never a big favorite, I'm sure, for many of you, and some of you might have even seen my coverage for them. I made about 14 videos regarding their music, German folk rock, if you're not familiar. She's been involved with them, and of course I probably got her a lot of prominence as well, but this is her signature group. She's the front lady of this band, which I believe, again, is Swiss-based. That's where she's from. I'm very interested to hear more from her. Again, coming off of Devastation Bound, I'm really excited to explore her and perhaps some of her other band endeavors and musical endeavors in a greater depth. And I did see from some of her individual YouTube activity that she was very artistically minded. That's something that appeals to me, as it is kind of a venture of my heart as well, though I'm very different. I'm not necessarily a singer. Thank goodness you don't want to hear my voice. But I am a music consumer. I appreciate talent that has, the God-given capabilities to sing. And I would say Melissa Boney, from that early introduction, certainly has that. Let's explore her for some of her more principal artistic endeavors with Ad Infinitum. And I love that name, by the way. This is from Chapter 1, Monarchy, the initial album. I'm actually looking at a good spattering of their tracks. And this is, to give you a bit of a prelude, this is the same respect that I'm giving many of the other collaborations. Erica Olson of Metalite is next. And at some, I'm deciding on the order. I think she'll be next. And then probably after that, Federica Lana from Volturian. Because both those artists were part of Mortimia's collaborative efforts as well. They're coming, as well as probably all the other artists in some order, some of which even I haven't explored yet. But I will say, in the case of Ad Infinitum, it's also very interesting. I don't usually do this, but I took it on faith after Devastation Bound that I would really appreciate her endeavors. So much so, I've actually bought all 3 of their albums outright. 2 of the tracks from the newly unveiled, because it's still in the pre-order stage, but Chapter 3. I don't tend to buy albums straightforward unless I've had some initial entrance with the artist or some long-lasting familiarity. This is rare. And I've done this with both Ad Infinitum and Metalite. I've taken it on faith, much the same way I did with D'Artagnan. Although in that case, I'd covered 14 tracks in advance, so I got a good feeling with them. But at this point, I've bought all of their albums outright. I did this with Ad Infinitum, even though I haven't covered any of the principal work yet. That's how much I was captivated by Melissa Boney. So much so that I'm like, you know what? I really want to explore her, and I'd love to have the experience of having her entire album on my phone to go through it. In advance even as well. So maybe some of you would say, well, why didn't you just wait that out? I don't know. I acted on impulse because I really was captivated. And I hope that you can appreciate it too. I would highly recommend going back and listening to that original Mortimia track. If you haven't at this point, it'd be a fresh introduction for you, because trust me, it'll captivate you immediately, especially if you're a symphonic gothic metal fan. You will love it. But Ad Infinitum, maybe you haven't heard of this group, similar to me, and this is a fresh look for you. Let's explore some of their work together. First with Marching on Versailles. I'm, in this case, choosing to follow it mostly, for the most part, some of the music videos is how I'm gauging some of their earlier work and, in terms of what I want to cover. And so some of the other tracks for Chapter 1, Monarchy, will follow up as well to this. But Marching on Versailles, this is the first music video in order of the tracks album, or the track listing on the first album. I'm going to go ahead and cue the music video, and if you're not familiar with how I format these music reactions, I do try and provide every accommodation for you, so if you'd like to read the lyrics along with the piece, because I don't believe the video provides that, I will have those superimposed in the video and the track along with the song as we proceed forward. But let's enjoy Ad Infinitum, and maybe through this, you can also gain the same appreciation that I have not only for Melissa Boney on an early introduction, but also for European metal. Because again, as I've said, it's been a big staple of my life for the last couple of years, and I've really wanted to dive deeper into this space and exploring fresh works. Let's try Ad Infinitum and see how they fare. I'm sure it'll be good. This name pops up everywhere, by the way, Napalm Records. I'm familiar with a couple of the bands that they carry. Now with Ad Infinitum. Oh. Oh, good incline. I love this. Beautiful scope already. And I love the Plague Doctor Chic, by the way. Oh. Oh, I like this marching band energy. Marching on Versailles, it fits with the tune.
This was your final chance, a chance you didn't take. Like the lightning, we will fall on your golden world. This was your final dance, your final reverence. Now all the rising.
I haven't listened to too many Swiss singers yet, by the way. It's so cool to be able to broaden out my appreciation of entertainment in the European country, generally. I like the varied pacing of these choruses. Or pre-chorus, I'm not exactly sure which one this is. We'll see. Oh, good transitions. Beautiful vocal blending, too. This vision is just beautiful. I love it. See, this is why I revere this space. I've said it so many times. Beautiful instrument blend, too. This is such a great verse to feed into that chorus. Again, beautiful structure here. Seriously? I love it. You know, I have a special place in my heart for American artists who I've heard in the metal scene, female lead singers who can scream. Hasn't extended to Europe yet. Melissa Boney is the first. Good on ya. So instead of her doing the screaming in the background, I know she didn't the principal focus, but it's really beautiful. And what a good ending, too. It's abrupt. Oh, it's so good. That's a type of metal that I love. Wow. Very dynamic. Different tonality, varied pacing, good structure, all the way through. And that is the first initial experience hearing a European front lady screaming in a metal band. But like I said, I have a special place in my heart for female singers who can scream. And there are a lot that do very well. I mean, well, actually, no, she's not the first, come to think of it. It's seldom been employed by her, and I as much as I love Zola Kalk of Blackbriar, again, big favorite of mine, they're Dutch, I really wish they would do more of the screaming line. They did so for one of their EP tracks, Ready to Kill, and I've never forgotten about it. And Zora can scream too. I mean, she's got a beautiful range in terms of her voice, but she seldom did anything screaming. So again, forgive me if I've forgotten about her just for a second. But wow, Melissa Boney. That is a beautiful articulation. See, that's, again, like I said, I've heard plenty of female singers in the American realm, and all have been favorites of mine. Because you do oftentimes hear that in the metal scene. I mean, and there's a lot of groups I listen to that happen to be fronted by ladies, and not all of them scream. Not all of them have that raspy growl that, you know, a lot of guys tend to do. But when it's unique when you hear a woman be able to achieve that presence to her voice. And I do think Melissa Boney is such a command of hers. And I think it also speaks to the credit as well that's married into the track quite well. Not only the background of those choruses, and I think that was exquisite how that was paced. Again, I didn't expect on initial look, but then how it became into principal focus, it was quite a twist. But the overall structure, like I said, of Marching on Versailles, and I haven't done a deep dive on this, but I wonder if there is some like historical attribution to the intent of the song. I wonder if there's like a sort of marriage between a background story of history and culture in European history to this song. I sensed that energy to it, or maybe it's just kind of evoking that feeling. But the lyrics are pretty good. It's got a great presence. I love the Plague Doctor chic. It's a very dark look, but that's a good entry for a first album, especially for a debut performance from Ad Infinitum. And on a debut look, that sets the bar pretty high. You know, I've said as well in the past from groups that are developing in their image and are a fresh stock on the scene. That sounds horrible the way I said that. Forgive my wording. It's not... Some groups take their time to find their footing. You sometimes see this with EPs, you know, a group will emerge, and you're like, okay, you're still kind of finding your voice and your specific identity. And again, I know that Melissa Bonny has done a lot with other collaborative artists, and she's probably got a background in singing. Well, she's probably been doing it for a while. But this is an initial, you know, appearance for Ad Infinitum, as I understand. That is... Actually, I think I read somewhere that one of their guitarists was connected to Fall of a Cypher, Lydia Tony Grand's past group, who I've also covered on this channel for free works, and I have another track to cover in mind. They're pretty good. Very electronic metal, if you're not familiar. So there is some history, I guess, to... But even then, it's like Ad Infinitum, perhaps, again, this is emerging on the scene. There's a forging identity. That sets the ground very well. You know, I've said before, there are groups that have perhaps, when they first come on the scene, have that clear sense of the sound they want to go for. Other times, maybe some groups, they find their way, but sometimes some of their earlier work is quite great. You know, I'd say by comparison, if this is American-based, the one I'm thinking of, but let's say I Am Empire. Not very well known, from my understanding. They've been in the Christian metal scene for a while, and I've met some people that have heard them, so I'm not the only one, even though I sometimes feel like it, because not many people, you know, I know that name. But in their early days, their music was great. Like, I loved Kings, but I do still, or was it Anchor? No, Kings was first. I do think, to some extent, they were exploring their sound, because it was an initial release, and there was a mixture of sound in some parts from them in regard to the energy of their tracks. Some had more of a ballad focus, others were much harder. Some kind of experimented around different types of sound. But you still felt that, again, there's that trying to reach for that spot of where the group is, you know, testing places that they could have good, solid footing in. But sometimes you find in a group, and this is not to speak ill, by the way, of I'm Empire at all by comparison, or other groups that are perhaps forging that brand image. Ad Infinitum, for a first impression, it sounds like they have an immediate focus. The symphonic route, very diverse tonality to their track, quite a dynamic presence to it, captivating illustration, beautiful presence. I'm very impressed with Marching on Versailles. It's a good first impression track if you wanted to jump into another group that you may not be familiar with. And again, like I've said, this is what I've hoped that the European music line and all my focus on it, in part we do on this channel, is introduce others. Or maybe, you know, as well find connections to other fans. And I have for some of the groups I've covered, which has been a lot of fun. It's been cool to find groups that perhaps some would say, and this is, you know, not just European-based, but in other groups as well worldwide, some in America as well. Some might say I'm venturing more into a smaller niche space. But I found a couple fans of other groups I listen to, and it's been really cool to have that relationship forged with others who perhaps have the same music taste that I do, but I don't oftentimes find in my real life. But it's also nice to be able to forge that path for others who perhaps have been yearning for new talent to explore and find and be captivated by. I hope that to some capacity this is a need for the channel is satisfying for you. What are your guys' thoughts of Ad Infinitum? Maybe some of you are longtime fans, right? And you're getting a first impression taken from somebody who's in his very early days of an enchanting romance of another European metal group. I'm sure will be a favorite on my playlist, based on Marching on Versailles, I believe it. But maybe for some of you, you're in the same position that I am, and you have never listened to Ad Infinitum before. Or maybe some of you have some sense of familiarity with that Mortemia work, Devastation Bound. I'm very grateful to Mortemia, again, for referencing all these artists that I have yet to explore. It's been great to have that doorway forged through his work, and I do give him the highest of compliments, not only for his craft and his music, but also in the introductory idea. Because otherwise I wouldn't have, or maybe I would have found them eventually, but not as quickly as I have now. Through him, I found Ad Infinitum with Melissa Bonney, and she's quite a stellar talent. But like I was saying, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on Marching on Versailles down below, as well as Ad Infinitum, but I will be covering them in the future. Keep your eyes peeled. I'm highly engaged. I definitely want to hear more of their work. Again, I've got the entire album on my phone. I haven't listened to it yet. I'm waiting to cover the first couple of other works, and then I'll go through chapter 1. And then maybe I'll cover some of their subsequent works as well from the other chapters. I know I'm going back a bit in terms of the release date of this album, but I wanted to get an early impression, and a good one. Certainly. Marching on Versailles, strong debut performance in my opinion, and sets a good foundation, in my mind, of Ad Infinitum. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.